Good morning. Welcome to today's joint hearing entitled Cybersecurity Research and Development, Challenges and Solutions. In front of you are packets containing the written testimony, biographies, and truth and testimony disclosures for today's witnesses. Before we get started, since this is a joint hearing involving two subcommittees, I want to explain how we will operate procedurally so all members will understand how the question and answer period will be handled. As always, we will alternate between the majority and minority members and allow all members an opportunity for questioning before recognizing a member for a second round of questions. We will recognize those members present at the gavel in order of seniority on the full committee, and those coming in after the gavel will be recognized in order of arrival. I now recognize myself for 5 minutes for my opening statement. We convened the first hearing of the Technology Subcommittee in the 113th Congress, held jointly with my colleagues on the Research Subcommittee. This subcommittee sits at the intersection of technology and innovation and is uniquely positioned to address topics affecting competitiveness of emerging high-growth industries. I look forward to learning from our witnesses today about cybersecurity research and development challenges, and I look forward to working with my colleagues to determine how we can eliminate barriers to entrepreneurship in our country going forward. In these difficult times, it's important that we continue to empower our nation's innovators to maintain our economic competitiveness. I now yield 2 minutes of my time to the chairman of the full committee, Mr. Smith of Texas. I now recognize myself for 5 minutes. Mr. Barrett, as a representative of private industry, it was good to hear you acknowledge that it's PayPal's responsibility to ensure security for PayPal's customers, but you alluded to some gaps in the research that exists and that there might be a role for the federal government to fund research in these gaps. Can you motivate the need for federal funding in this area and then also talk about what some of those gaps are?
Yeah, I alluded to this problem a little bit in my oral testimony. Essentially, we have a problem at the moment, which is we actually don't know how bad the problem is. It sounds perverse to say it that way, but essentially, there are hugely disparate estimates that you see flying around in various publications of the scale of the problem. Everybody agrees it's getting worse. But I have 3 rhetorical questions that I like to ask, and they're significant ones, and actually at the moment I defy anybody to answer them. And so again, I'm purely talking about cybercrime, not cyber terrorism or cyber warfare. So I work for a commercial enterprise, and so we have a narrow worldview. So the questions are these: how much money is lost to cyber crime on an annual basis in the US alone? And I'm not talking about how much money people like me spend on running a defensive team. I'm actually talking about dollars that our customers and therefore we lose. So that's question 1. Question 2 is, where does it go? Is it all going back into the United States or is it going overseas? And what are the distributions of country? Now, various people in my industry have various hypotheses about where it's going, and certainly my team has all sorts of interesting hypotheses, but fundamentally it's unsupported by large-scale data. And then finally, do those countries actually have good programs themselves to manage cybersecurity, and do they in fact prosecute cyber criminals? Do they even recognize cybercrime violations as being violations of law, or are they just, oh well, it's kind of the equivalent of doing some antisocial act and there's no consequences? We have no answers to those questions today, and they're really important ones that I think are at the heart of what the federal government could do to help understand the problem better.
Thank you. My next question is for Ms. Benzel. In this bill, we're contemplating expanding funding at universities, which are typically open universities where sharing is encouraged. And you mentioned the Deter Lab at your institution, which is funded by DHS and DOD, I think. Can you tell us or give us some level of comfort that we wouldn't be funding efforts that could then be used by our adversaries Thank you.
Being part of a major university and having a deep faith in the need for education, we do run an open facility. It is funded, as I said, by the Department of Homeland Security. And so the Deter Lab is a national, and it's an international resource that is available for anyone to be able to use. Obviously, we vet our users. Our approach within the Deter system is to be looking at defenses, and defenses need to be something that can be opened, openly developed. Looking at security by obscurity is sure to get us into trouble. Now, having said that, and being a deep believer in being able to educate our next generation and to do publications, etc., there are opportunities to do research in other environments which might be more closed and might be providing some classified support for it. But we advocate an openness in educating the next generation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Deter Lab makes a lot more sense than Deter Lab.
We do try and deter the attackers, that's what we say. Thank you.
Okay. I now recognize Ranking Member Ms. Wilson.